Tonight on Evening Edition, cases of Kawasaki disease in children are growing in San Diego County.
She started having the rash, she started having red hands and feet that were swelling a little bit, and then her eyes were also getting very bloodshot.
What researchers say could be the cause. Plus, a possible cure for what's been dubbed bubble boy disease is found in an unlikely virus, how HIV is helping babies born without functioning immune systems. And Earth Day is being celebrated across the globe and here in California. We take a look at the events. KPBS Evening Edition starts right now. Good evening. It's Monday, April 22nd. Thanks for joining us. I'm Ebone Monet. A rare and potentially deadly disease is making a growing number of San Diego children sick. KPBS health reporter Susan Murphy talked to a team of researchers who say it may be caused by something in the air.
What is this name?
It says Amelia and Lucy for my daughters.
When 3-year-old Amelia Hurwitz was admitted to Rady Children's Hospital in February,
Hot medicine.
You didn't like the hot medicine, I know.
she had a high fever, swollen lymph nodes in her neck, and red cracked lips.
She started having the rash, she started having red hands and feet that were swelling a little bit, and then her eyes were also getting very bloodshot.
Her mother, Laura Hurwitz, says doctors immediately ruled out the flu, staph infection, mono.
As her symptoms kept more and more were coming and they were becoming more prevalent, that's when they took her in for the echocardiogram and she was identified as Kawasaki disease. Ready? 1, 2, 3, go!
Amelia is one of 50 children in San Diego County to be diagnosed with Kawasaki disease since January. That's 3 times more than usual. The disease generally affects children under the age of 5. Left untreated, it can fatally damage the heart in 1 of 4 children.
Kawasaki disease, to me, is the most compelling mystery in clinical pediatrics right now, because the answer seems like it must be staring us in the face.
Dr. Jane Burns is a professor of pediatrics at UC San Diego and director of the Kawasaki Disease Research Center. She says most of the children recently diagnosed in San Diego County were treated early enough to prevent heart damage, but for some, even early treatment wasn't enough. She says those children will require lifelong treatment.
And without the proper follow-up, which can keep all of these individuals safe, there can be disastrous consequences.
Burns and her team meet every week to discuss new research and review cases.
We don't think like high temperature causes Kawasaki disease, or even high temperature is linked to whatever the thing is.
That team includes Jennifer Burney, an environmental scientist with UC San Diego.
We think these are just more indicators of atmospheric conditions.
Burney believes the culprit may be air flowing across the Pacific Ocean from Asia to San Diego, stirred up by unusual weather patterns.
What we know is that historically in San Diego County, when you see these moments of high incidence of Kawasaki, they're associated with a set of conditions, so higher temperatures, higher daytime and nighttime temperatures, and reduced circulation across the Pacific.
Burney says pockets of air get trapped, and that seems to be linked to a spike in cases. The unknown is what exactly is in the air that triggers the disease, which is found all over the world. Her research points to aerosol particles.
Some of these come from natural sources like dust or sea salt. Some of them are biologic, fungus, bacteria, virus, and some of them are from anthropogenic activity, things like burning fossil fuels or transportation emissions or burning biomass in particular puts a lot of aerosols up into the atmosphere.
Burney is studying data on when and where kids are getting sick to try to catch the culprit.
We need to figure out sort of statistically how to sample for something that's kind of sparse potentially in the atmosphere. How do you do that in a way that you might actually catch the thing at the moment that it is exposing kids?
The current paradigm is that if you are born with the genetic susceptibility, you will get Kawasaki disease. It's just a question of when you'll come across the trigger.
Dr. Burns, director of the research team, dedicated her life to studying the disease after one of her patients died of it 35 years ago. She says children of all races have been sickened, but Asian children and boys are at a higher risk. She imagines a time in the near future when every baby will be genetically screened for the disease.
And then we would vaccinate them so they would never need to suffer Kawasaki disease. And we would just wipe it out. That's my dream. That's my dream. That's a better world.
Susan Murphy, KPBS News.
Parents are urged to know the signs and symptoms of the disease. To find out more, visit kpbs.org. 8 babies across the nation born without working immune systems had their disease corrected by one of the immune system's worst enemies, HIV, the virus that causes AIDS. The boys had severe combined immunodeficiency syndrome, often called bubble boy disease.
The tag Bubble Boy was first used to describe Texas youngster David Vetter. His inherited disorder left him without any natural immunity, and he was kept isolated within this bubble. Vetter died from complications from an experimental bone marrow transplant in 1984. At the time, the transplant was his only chance of survival outside his bubble. 35 years later, meet little Omarion Jordan. Like the boys in the new research study, Omarion was born without a working immune system. Every germ or infection threatens their lives because their bodies aren't able to fight them. Even a common cold could be fatal.
Babies are born without functional immune system. If left untreated, they develop life-threatening infections, very serious infections, and most of them die within the first year of life.
They've become known as bubble boys, babies who are unable to grow up freely like other children. They must be kept in a tight, germ-free environment. The boys are born with SCID, a genetic flaw which stops bone marrow from making effective versions of blood cells which make up the immune system. Omarion and his mom, Kristen Simpson, will celebrate his first birthday this week on the 25th of April. The disease affects 1 in 200,000 newborns, almost exclusively males. Now a new study shows 8 babies with bubble boy disease have had it corrected by a gene therapy made from HIV. They were treated by St. Jude's Research Hospital for Children in Memphis between 2016 and 2017. A study published last week details how scientists turned this enemy virus into a savior, altering it so it couldn't cause disease and then using it to deliver a gene the boys lacked. A bone marrow transplant from a genetically matched sibling can cure SCID, but most people lack a suitable donor. Transplants can also be medically risky.
So it's very important that this disease is treated as soon as the babies are diagnosed. It results from defects in a gene called IL-2RG that is essential for normal immune function of lymphocytes. And lymphocytes are part of the white blood cells that give immunity to infections.
Therapy involves removing some of a patient's blood cells, using the modified HIV to insert the missing gene, and returning the cells through intravenously. Before getting their cells back, patients are given a drug to destroy some of their marrow so the modified cells have more room to grow. The research was pioneered at St. Jude's by the late physician and lead researcher Dr. Brian Sorrentino. Speaking in a prepared interview in November 2017, Sorrentino explained.
We're replacing the defective gene that causes this disease, X-SCID. And the way we do that is we take bone marrow cells in the operating room out, and we insert a normal copy of this gene using a device called a vector, which is a disabled virus. What's unique about our trial is we're the first to use a lentiviral vector to treat newborn X-SCID. This is a very modern form of a vector that we think is both safer and more effective at correcting the stem cells. And another aspect of our trial that is unique is we're using a drug to condition the patient beforehand that increases the efficiency by which these corrected cells engraft in the bone marrow.
When doctors first tried this 20 years ago, the treatment had unintended effects on other genes, and some patients later developed leukemia. The new therapy has safeguards to lower that risk.
We've developed the process for purifying the bone marrow cells and for transducing them with the vector. And this has really required an enormous amount of work and sophistication, but one which is critically important for the outcome.
He used inactivated HIV virus. He took all the active parts of the virus out and left the shell of the virus to carry the healthy copy into the stem cell. And this vector has this type of virus called lentiviral vector is much more effective and safer for gene therapy. And this particular vector has a very unique feature. It has insulators, which are almost like a firewalls that protect the site where the vector lands in the cell from other genes, from activating the genes, especially the genes that can cause leukemia. And this is what happened in the previous gene therapy trials.
The new study tried it in infants. During the trial, normal levels of healthy immune system cells developed in 7 boys within a few months. The 8th baby boy needed a second dose of gene therapy, but now is well too. 6 to 24 months after treatment, all 8 are making all of the cell types needed to fight infections, and some have successfully received vaccines to further boost their immunity to childhood diseases. No serious or lasting side effects on the children have been reported. Doctors at St. Jude's are hoping to use the treatment for other disorders.
This vector can be used to treat other disorders, and as Dr. Sorrentino used to say, this is going to be something that's the wave of the future. Any disorder, genetic disorder with a known genetic defect is amenable to this approach. And here at St. Jude, we would like to use this template to treat other devastating blood disorder called sickle cell disease.
Rights for the treatment have been licensed by St. Jude to a biotech company, Mustang Bio. Doctors say they have no estimate on what it might cost if approved. Today is Earth Day. Gavin Newsom and his family held a celebration at the historic Governor's Mansion in honor of our planet. The governor got his hands dirty this morning planting strawberries in the backyard of the mansion. Children were invited to paint rocks, play with worms, and practice gardening. The First Lady also read a children's story on the steps of the mansion about caring for the environment. While speaking to reporters, Newsom said the meaning of Earth Day has changed over the years.
The old construct when Earth Day was originally conceived was, folks that had named the environmental community as sort of tree huggers, as liberals. We are taking back and renaming the environment. We're renaming Earth Day as entrepreneurial, as innovative, as patriotic.
Earth Day was first celebrated in 1970 and now includes events in nearly 200 countries. Meanwhile, also on Earth Day, a push to phase out diesel school buses in California is gaining traction. Lawmakers and students gathered in Sacramento today to promote a measure aimed at helping school districts buy electric buses. They say this is a good time for school districts to make the transition. 15% of buses currently operating are set to expire out of their useful time span, and that the clean air buses would protect students from harmful diesel exhaust.
School districts absolutely want to do it. The challenge is around funding and how they phase out the dirty school buses that they have. We have not invested as a state what we need to help schools with that upfront investment so they can see those longer-term savings.
The proposed bill would develop new partnerships with state air officials, school districts, and utility companies. There's also an effort to reduce the amount of waste at local landfills. The Miramar landfill holds more than half of the waste San Diegans throw out each year, with food and yard waste making up the largest portion. That's where Food to Soil comes in. KPBS Midday Edition host Jade Heinman spoke with the nonprofit behind the composting service.
Your company, Food to Soil, helps a lot of restaurants and people. Tell me about the need and how you're meeting that demand.
So San Diego doesn't have an existing service for composting. We have the Miramar Greenery, which is at full capacity. And so businesses and individuals are scrambling to find a service that will help them compost their food waste. So Food to Soil is just that. We are a community composter. We are San Diego's neighborhood composter, we like to say. And we are composting for the urban environment because urban dwellers don't always have the time or the space or the interest to compost. So what we do is we offer that support that our citizens need, either to help them compost themselves or we take their scraps and compost it for them.
And how many restaurants, individuals are you servicing?
So we have 6 restaurants who are part of our program. We have about 70 individuals, households, who drop off their scraps every week with us for composting. And we compost at 2 community gardens, the San Carlos Community Garden and the Ocean View Growing Grounds. And we also supply scraps. Our scraps are clean, source-separated scraps. So we supply our scraps to 2 farms, Wild Willow Farm and Second Chance, because they are looking for scraps to make compost with. So that's sort of the network, and it's growing. We also have 4 on-site composting projects at corporate campuses. 2 are at General Atomics, 1 is at Viasat, and 1 is at San Diego Mesa College.
Well, it certainly sounds like a big demand for what you're doing. Why would you encourage people to compost?
So the simplest way to put it is because that's the only way you can close your loop regarding your food waste, with respect to your food waste footprint. The soil grows food, it nourishes us, and it is our responsibility to send those nutrients back into the soil. At least the nutrients that we don't use or that we discard need to go back to the soil to keep it nourished, to replenish the nutrients that we took from it. So that's the reason you compost. And the other reason you would want to compost is if you're a gardener or a farmer, you want to grow nutrient-dense food. And incorporating compost in your soil, keeping your soil alive, is the best way to grow that nutrient-dense food.
Is composting environmentally friendly? I mean, does it create methane gas?
Absolutely. Well, it doesn't create methane. Okay, so landfilling creates methane gas because when all this organic waste goes into the landfill, it's managed anaerobically. Anaerobic means in the absence of oxygen and water. So when you manage an organic material anaerobically, it's going to emit methane, and methane is a greenhouse emission. So landfilling is creating that greenhouse emission. By composting, you're reducing your waste footprint and thereby your carbon footprint. So absolutely, composting is a way to reduce that carbon footprint and decrease that emission impact that you have on the environment.
All right, Sarah, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much.
I'm Judy Woodruff. Tonight on the NewsHour, suicide attacks kill nearly 300 in Sri Lanka, amid signs that security forces missed early warnings. Coming up at 7 after Evening Edition on KPBS.
Sunny skies and increased temperatures are back in San Diego. But will the warmer weather stick around? KPBS meteorologist Erin Calandra has our forecast.
Well, check out this satellite and radar. Looks like it's not even on, but it is. We just don't have anything happening here across San Diego County at the moment. It is nice and quiet, and that's really the case for much of California. Look at that, a nice break. Could see just a couple of spotty showers, but that is far away from here. We are going to enjoy nothing but clear skies. 58 degrees tonight across the metro region. Oceanside at 52, Chula Vista at 54 degrees, and Ramona coming in at 40. 46. Borrego Springs, our low temperature tonight, 66 degrees. Now tomorrow, it's going to be great. Warm and dry. Those showers that we had far off to the east, nothing but sunshine and temperatures increasing. Oceanside up to 72 degrees. San Diego as well. El Cajon at 84 for that high temperature, and Ramona at 82. In the deserts, we are talking those upper 90s. Lots of sunshine. If you're in the deserts and you're working outside, it's important that you stay hydrated, take some breaks, and of course, protect yourself from that sun. Now, here we are late week, nothing going on in the southwest. We are seeing a great weather pattern. It's going to be very pleasant. Now, for the next couple of days along the coast, nothing but sunshine. You might notice a few low clouds by Friday, a shift of the winds, but sunshine by the afternoon. And our temperatures are pretty steady. We're talking those low 70s much of this week. Inland, we're in the 80s, looking good. Mostly sunny and getting just a little bit cooler Saturday with a high of 78 degrees. In the deserts, again, in the 90s. Again, protect yourself from that sunshine, drink lots of water, and in the mountains, very pleasant. Temperatures will reach 70 degrees Wednesday, but the rest of the week we are in the 60s, awfully comfortable with an abundance of sunshine. For KPBS News, I'm Erin Calandra. Back to you.
4 decades and still going. Ken Kramer's About San Diego is entering a new season here on KPBS TV. And I'm joined now by the show's creator, host, and producer, Ken Kramer. Welcome.
Thank you very much. 4 decades. I'm thinking about that. I feel very old indeed, but it's great to be here.
So, Ken, you got your start in 1972 on radio. How do you still come up with ideas?
Yeah, I was a student at the time at San Diego State doing them on the radio. There are no end to ideas. People do write me, and then I have ideas on my own. You know, I'm just very curious about things. I'm the person who, maybe you do a commute every day on the road, and you're driving along, and you notice that the road makes a little bit of a curve, and you notice it, but you don't pay a lot of attention to it. Well, I'm the guy who finds out that the reason Caltrans made that curve is that there was an old Native American graveyard there and they wanted to go around it. Fascinating little things, like how'd Grossmont get its name? I love stuff like that, and those are the stories that really intrigue me.
So what stories actually make the show? Because I would imagine you're getting pitched all the time.
I am. I do get a lot of ideas from people, but the stories that make the show are the things that have kind of like that second level. Here's a story, here's a thing, here's something that happened, and if you look right here on the sidewalk, you can see the person who was responsible left their handprint or their footprint there, and every time you see that, you'll now know the story about San Diego. It's got to like have that second level, and then it just works, and I love it.
And I had the pleasure of spending the afternoon with you. We went to Balboa Park last year.
Right.
And I saw firsthand how people connected to you and the show. What do you think it is about your storytelling that really resonates with people?
Well, I think everybody loves to have their decision to live in San Diego validated. I mean, it makes them feel good about, oh yeah, you know, I actually think that this place is more than just the zoo. It's more than just the Navy and different things like that, and lovely beaches. Right. It really has deep roots. So there's that. And then I also think there's a simplicity to the show, to be honest with you. I just sit at a table and I tell stories about San Diego, and there is a kind of a linear simplicity to it that isn't a lot of what you see on television today. Things are flashing and smashing and boom, 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 boom. This is just, hey, I'm going to tell you a story. And I think that in complicated times is sort of simple and restful to people.
So over the years, you've actually discussed retiring. I've come across some articles where it was being announced that you're retiring, and the comments are still coming in with people saying, oh no, don't go. So fortunately, you are still doing the show. What keeps you motivated? Yeah,
at a certain point, you know, I'm getting to be a little older. And, you know, as I crossed over into the age of 70, I thought to myself, you know, it's time to retire, get married, start a family. and you know, I love doing the show, and I don't want to completely stop. I stopped doing every week shows a couple of years ago, but every once in a while I come back and I do just a few. And then I run away and I play. So it's sort of 1 foot in, 1 foot out. Yeah, I'm retired, but it's fun to do the show. There's a demand for this show. People come to me and they say, we want more, do some more shows. And I can't pretend I'm unaffected by that. So I will do some shows, and it's certainly not tedious and dreadful for me. I do enjoy it. It's why I got into the business after all, but not so much as I used to, every once in a while.
Well, cheers to another season of
Thank
Kim
you.
Kramer's About San Diego.
Thank you. They start Thursday night, the 25th. We'll have the first of a few shows about San Diego. Hope everybody likes it. We sure had fun putting them together, and I had fun visiting with you.
Awesome. We're looking forward to it.
Thank you.
Now for a recap of tonight's top stories. In honor of Earth Day, Gavin Newsom and his wife held a celebration at the historic Governor's Mansion. Children were invited to paint rocks, play with worms, and practice gardening alongside Newsom. Earth Day was first celebrated in 1970 and now includes events in nearly 200 countries. A push to phase out diesel school buses in California is gaining traction. Lawmakers and students gathered in Sacramento today to promote a measure aimed at helping school districts buy electric buses. They say clean air buses would protect students from harmful diesel exhaust. And 8 babies across the nation born without working immune systems had their disease corrected by HIV, the virus that causes AIDS. The boys had what was dubbed bubble boy disease. Every infection threatened their lives because their bodies aren't able to fight it. There's no estimate on what the treatment might cost if approved. You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. Thanks for joining us. Have a great evening.